Welcome, friends. It was a freezing winter evening. Snowflakes danced in the air and the city streets were almost empty. A CEO single dad was walking home with his little daughter after a long day at work. The little girl's laughter filled the cold air until she suddenly stopped and tugged at her father's hand. "Daddy, her baby is freezing," she whispered, pointing toward a woman sitting on a bench. The man turned and saw her, a young mother, shivering under the falling snow, holding her newborn baby wrapped in a thin blanket. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, and her eyes closed as if she didn't have the strength to go on. Without a second thought, the man ran toward her. He took off his long black coat and gently covered her shoulders. Then he removed his red scarf and wrapped it around the baby. His daughter stood beside him, her little hands trying to help. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" the man said softly, his voice full of concern. "You need warmth. Please, hold on." The woman slowly opened her eyes. I'm fine," she whispered weakly. "'Tis my baby. He hasn't eaten since morning." The man felt a sharp pain in his heart. He turned to his daughter. "Sweetheart, open the bag. We still have the sandwich from lunch." The little girl nodded quickly, pulling out the food and a small bottle of milk. She handed it to the woman with innocent kindness. "Here, for your baby." Tears rolled down the woman's cheeks. Why are you helping me?" she asked faintly. The man smiled gently. "Because no one deserves to be alone in the cold. Not you, not your baby." He called for help and soon an ambulance arrived. As the woman and her baby were taken away, she looked at them through the window, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you. You saved us." The little girl waved and said softly, "Bye-bye, baby. Stay warm." The man looked down at his daughter and whispered, "You did something beautiful today. Never stop caring." She smiled and hugged him. "You taught me, Daddy. Kindness is the best way to keep people warm." Snow continued to fall, but in that moment the cold didn't matter anymore. What filled the air was love, warmth, and hope. A reminder that a small act of kindness can save a life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Only on Soul of Kindness, seen Jabberdast. The next morning, the city was covered in white snow. Everything looked beautiful, yet cold except for one small hospital room, where warmth and kindness filled the air. The homeless mother lay on a bed, her baby wrapped safely in a thick blanket. Beside her sat the same man, the CEO single dad, and his little daughter, holding a small teddy bear she had brought for the baby. The mother opened her eyes slowly and whispered, "You didn't have to come back. You've already done enough." The man smiled softly. Sometimes enough isn't enough when someone still needs care. The little girl climbed onto the chair next to the bed and said in her sweet voice, "Mommy says angels have wings, but I think my daddy is one without them." The woman's eyes filled with tears. You're both angels," she said, her voice trembling. "No one has ever treated me like a person before. Not since I lost my home, my family, everything." The man looked at her, his expression serious but gentle. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Life can break you, but it doesn't mean you're unworthy of love." He looked at the baby, sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, and smiled. "Look at him." I was like, right. "He's already stronger than he knows." The woman began to cry quietly, clutching the baby to her chest. "I used to have dreams," she said softly. "I wanted to be a nurse, to help people. But after my husband left and the bills piled up, I lost everything. I stopped believing in kindness. Until last night." The little girl reached out her small hand and touched hers. "You can still be what you wanted," she said with innocent certainty. "Daddy says if your heart is good, you can start again anytime." The man nodded. "My company runs a charity program for single mothers. I want you to be part of it. We can help you get back on your feet, find a home, and maybe even go back to school." The woman gasped. Why? "Why would you do that for me?" He smiled. "Because one night in the snow reminded me. Success means nothing if it can't change someone's life." The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the heater. The woman began to sob, but this time it wasn't from pain, it was from relief. She held the man's hand tightly and whispered, "Thank you for giving my baby a future." The little girl placed the teddy bear next to the baby and whispered, "Now he'll never be alone again." Snow continued to fall outside, but inside that small hospital room, something much warmer was born, a new beginning. A few weeks later, the city streets had started to bloom again. The snow had melted and spring had quietly arrived, bringing with it new hope. The once homeless mother, now healthier and stronger, stood in front of a small apartment the CEO single dad had arranged for her through his company's charity program. In her arms, her baby cooed softly, full of life and warmth. The man stood beside her with his little daughter, smiling as she handed the woman a small pot of flowers. "Daddy says flowers mean new beginnings," the little girl said happily. The woman bent down, tears glistening in her eyes, and hugged the girl. "You've already given me one, sweetheart," she whispered. They all went inside. The small but cozy apartment, sunlight spilling through the windows, filling every corner with warmth. The mother looked around in awe. A bed, a kitchen, a crib by the window. It wasn't much, but to her it was everything. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You didn't just save me that night. You gave me back my dignity." The man smiled gently. You don't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll help someone else one day, the way someone once helped you. The woman nodded, holding her baby tighter. I will. I'll never forget what kindness feels like. The little girl ran to the baby's crib and placed another small gift, a drawing she had made. It showed 4 people standing under a bright sun, the man, the little girl, the woman, and her baby, all holding hands. At the top, in her childlike handwriting, she had written, "Kindness makes families." The woman's tears flowed freely as she picked up the drawing. You have no idea what this means to me, she whispered. The man looked at her kindly. I think we all needed this. You needed a home, and maybe I needed a reminder of what truly matters. She smiled softly. You're a CEO, but you have the heart of a father, not just to your daughter, but to anyone who's lost. He looked down at his daughter, who was now giggling and playing with the baby. She's my teacher, he said with a grin. She's the one who saw you that night and said, Daddy, her baby is freezing sometimes. It takes a child's heart to see what grown-ups ignore. The woman's voice broke as she said, if it weren't for her words that night, I don't think I'd still be here. The man's eyes softened. Then it was never luck, it was meant to be. Sometimes fate sends the right people at the right time. They all stood quietly for a moment, watching the sunlight fall on the baby's face. Peaceful, innocent, and full of promise. The little girl smiled and said, See, Daddy? The baby's not cold anymore. The man placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, No, sweetheart, not anymore. Outside, the breeze carried the scent of new flowers, and with it, the feeling that life had given everyone in that room a second chance. A chance built not on wealth, but on kindness. Months had passed, and the world had quietly moved on, but for the CEO's single dad, his little girl, and the woman he had once rescued from the cold, life had become something new, something beautiful. It was a bright afternoon, and the small community center the CEO had built through his charity program was buzzing with life. Inside, children laughed, mothers shared stories, and volunteers moved with purpose. The woman, now wearing a nurse's uniform, was helping a little boy with his bandaged arm. Her baby, now a few months older, slept peacefully in a cradle beside her. She looked up and saw the man and his daughter standing by the doorway, smiling proudly. The moment their eyes met, she felt her throat tighten with emotion. You really did it, he said softly as he walked closer. You turned your pain into purpose. She smiled, her eyes glistening. I couldn't have done it without you. Without both of you. You gave me hope when I had nothing. The little girl ran to her and hugged her tightly. I told Daddy you'd become a real hero one day, she said cheerfully. The woman laughed gently. Oh, sweetheart, you were the real hero that night. But you saw me when no one else did. The CEO looked around at the center, the laughter, the warmth, the life. You know, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I started this place thinking I was helping others. But the truth is, this place helped me too. You reminded me what kindness really means. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, Kindness saved my life. And my baby's, The man smiled and placed his hand gently over the cradle. Then let's make sure it keeps saving others. Just then, a young woman entered the center, shivering in a torn coat, holding a small child. Her eyes were full of fear, the same look the rescued mother had once worn. The woman immediately rushed forward, wrapped a blanket around her, and said gently, You're safe here. We'll take care of you. The CEO watched as the same cycle of compassion began again, kindness being passed forward like a living flame. His little daughter tugged at his coat and whispered, Daddy, it's happening again. We're saving someone else. He smiled, his eyes wet. No, sweetheart. She's saving someone now. The rescued woman turned to look at him, tears streaming down her face. You see, kindness doesn't end with one act, she said softly. It grows, it spreads, it becomes life itself. The man nodded. And that's what this world needs, more hearts like yours. And the little girl picked up the red scarf, the same one that had once kept the baby warm in the snow, and handed it to the new mother. This will keep your baby safe too, she said sweetly. The entire room grew quiet for a moment, every eye glistening with emotion. The woman held the scarf close, whispering, This is how miracles begin. The camera slowly panned out, the community center glowing with light, laughter, and warmth, proof that one act of compassion. Welcome, friends. 1 year later, the story that began on a freezing night had now become a legacy of love. The once homeless mother had built a new life, not just for herself, but for dozens of women who had once felt invisible. The community center she helped run was now known across the city as the House of Hope, founded by a CEO who believed that compassion could rebuild the world. On this special day, the center was decorated with flowers and ribbons. A big event was being held, the first anniversary of the House of Hope. Cameras flashed, people gathered, and the air buzzed with celebration. The woman stood on stage, holding her baby in her arms, tears shining in her eyes as she looked at the audience. She began to speak, her voice trembling with emotion. A year ago, I was sitting on a cold bench with nothing but fear in my heart and a baby in my arms. I had no home, no strength, and no hope. But then, One man and his little daughter stopped. They didn't look away. They didn't judge. They saved me. The crowd grew silent. The man, the CEO, stood near the front holding his daughter's hand. His eyes glistened as he listened. The woman continued, her voice breaking. That night, kindness found me. And today, because of that kindness, hundreds of lives are being changed. We feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, and remind the broken that they are still worthy of love. The audience applauded softly, but she raised her hand, tears streaming down her face. But the real heroes are here with us, a father who gave more than money, and a little girl whose heart saw what the world ignored. Everyone turned toward the CEO and his daughter. The little girl blushed and hid behind her father, and the man placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. He slowly walked up to the stage, and the woman handed him the microphone. His voice was steady but full of emotion. That night, I didn't save anyone. The truth is, they saved me. They reminded me that success means nothing without humanity. My daughter taught me that love is not found in power. It's found in moments of compassion. He turned toward the woman and smiled. You rebuilt your life. You proved that strength isn't about what you have, it's about what you give. The little girl stepped forward, holding the same red scarf from that cold night. This belongs here now, she said sweetly, and tied it around the sign that read, The House of Hope. The crowd fell silent again, and in that silence, every heart felt something pure, something eternal. The red scarf fluttered gently in the breeze, like a symbol of every act of kindness that had ever mattered. The woman looked at the CEO, her eyes filled with tears. You gave me a second chance, she whispered. He smiled softly. No. You gave the world one. The camera slowly pulled back, showing the crowd, the center of the shining faces. And above them all, the fluttering red scarf, a reminder that a single act of love can create ripples that